Hello friends, let us talk about the poem Futility written by Wilfred Owen. This poem belongs to the genre of war poetry and it is a very short elegy mourning the death of all soldiers. And this poem, like the poem Strange Meeting by the same poet Wilfred Owen, is also a profound meditation on the horrifying impact of war and about the futility of war. The title of the poem itself is Futility, and you know that futility means uselessness, pointlessness. And Wilfred Owen, in all his poems, though he wrote a very few, because he died very young at the age of 25 in the First World War, and he highlights or he emphasizes on this idea of the pity of war, and he desires to put across the message to the readers that war is essentially pointless and futile. And so that is exactly what he talks about in this poem too. So let us quickly read the poem. It's a very short poem of just 2 stanzas, 7 lines each. So let's read the poem first. Futility. Move him into the sun. Gently its touch awoke him once at home, whispering of fields half sown. Always it woke him even in France, until this morning and this snow. If anything might rouse him now, the kind old sun will know. Think how it wakes the seeds, woke once the clays of a cold star. Our limbs so dear achieved, our sides full nerved, still warm, too hard to stir? Was it for this the clay grew tall? Oh, what made fatuous sunbeams toil to break earth's sleep at all? Okay, very short but very poignant and very powerful poem. In one of his letters to his mother, Wilfred Owen had written about an incident where he had to spend a couple of nights in a small hole hiding from the enemies, and very close to him lay the dead body of one of his friends. So he had to spend a couple of days and nights with this dead friend next to him, and so he had been encountering death in all its gruesome details during the war, and he himself succumbed to death. So here we have a soldier lying dead, and so the poet, the speaker of the poem, tells his friends, the other soldiers, move him into the sun. That is, put him somewhere where the sun beams fall on him. Maybe the beams of the sun rays, may succeed in waking him up. So before giving him up for dead, the friends are trying to revive him. So they're hoping that the sun beams or the sun rays would reawaken him, would instill life in him. It's a very sad picture that we have here. So he says, move him into the sun. Gently its touch awoke him once at home, whispering of fields half sown. So earlier, when this man was at home, maybe in England, in some far off village in England, when he was there, he used to wake up in the morning when the sun beams touched him, because he seems to be a farmer. He seems to have been a farmer, and so in the morning, as soon as the sunbeams touched him, he would jump up, remembering that he had a lot of work remaining undone because the fields were only half sown, and so he would immediately wake up as soon as the sun touched him. So the sunbeams had never failed to awaken him. So at home, whispering of fields half sown. So maybe he always at home, that is what he used to do. He used to wake up early in the morning in order to complete his work in the fields. So when I read this poem, I feel that maybe even in the battlefield, when he was asleep, maybe the soldier in his sleep, he would have whispered about the half sown fields at home, because he must have left his work half done when he was called for the battle. So it may also be that maybe that is how his fellow mates know that he was very attached to his home and his fields. Always it woke him, even in France. So even in France, in the battlefield, whenever the sun touched him, this man would wake up. And until this morning, and this snow, until this morning, till yesterday, this was how it is. Whenever the sun touched him, he used to wake up. So that is why he tells him, put him in the sun, move him to some place where he can get the sunlight, and so that let us see whether the sun can wake him up. If anything might rouse him now, the kind old sun will know. So if anything at all can wake him up, I'm sure it is the sun. So the sun had never failed to awaken this young man, and so the friends say, or the friend says, that if anything might rouse him now, the kind old sun will know. Because the sun has a very long acquaintance with this young man, and so the sun had known him from the time he was young, when he was a farmer back home. And so this friend who is speaking says that definitely if there is a way in which this man can be awakened, definitely only the sun would know it. So let us see whether the old sun, the kind old sun, will know how to wake him up. So they put him in the sun. Think how it wakes the seeds. Woke once the clays of a cold star. So he gives further justification. The soldier gives further justification for what he says. He says, see, the sun we know is very powerful. It can even wake the seeds. Wake the seeds in the sense, the seeds that lie under the soil, even those seeds can be wakened by the touch of the sunlight. So then definitely the sun that is so powerful, the sun that is so full of energy, can definitely wake this man up. That is what he hopes for. And he also says, it woke once the clays of a cold star. So what he says is that when the planet once upon a time was a cold place, the planet Earth was once, it was frozen. We have heard of the ice age and such things, and even then it was the sun who woke this earth up, and the sun who kind of thawed the earth with its sunlight and with its warmth. The sun was able to kindle life on this cold earth. It was able to thaw the earth, and it was able to bring out vegetation on earth. And so can't this powerful sun bring back life to this friend of ours? That's why he asks, our limbs so dear achieved, our sides full nerved, still warm, too hard to stir. So he's talking about the human body, full nerved. It is still warm, and the limbs so dear achieved, because a human being definitely is a precious creation. So these limbs so dear achieved can also be nurtured by nature, nurtured by his parents, loved by his friends. So these limbs so dear achieved, and the sides, that is his body, full of nerves, and the body that is still warm. Is it so difficult to stir this body or to bring back life to this body? The sun, and is it so difficult for the sun? The very sun who had even brought life into this cold, frozen earth, can't he do something as simple as bringing back life to this human body that is still intact? Because when he sees that nothing is happening and the friend is not coming back to life, he gets frustrated, and he says, was it for this the clay grew tall? So here the clay, here the reference is to how in the Bible it is God designed man or created man, shaped man out of clay. So here the clay refers to the human body, and so is it for this that the clay grew tall? So the question is whether this young man lived all these years to die at the prime of his youth. How pointless is that? How futile is that for a person to live a life on this earth and for the life to be snatched away right at the prime of his youth, maybe in his early 20s? How unfair can that be? So that is the question that is, you can see the frustration, the anger, the helplessness of the friend, the soldier. And then he says, oh, what made fatuous sunbeams toil to break earth's sleep at all? So if this was what was going to happen to this world, if people were going to be killed by millions in a futile war, if this was what was going to happen to this world, then why did these fatuous sunbeams, fatuous means stupid, silly, or pointless. So why did the sunbeams work hard to break earth's sleep at all? Why didn't the sunbeams just allow the earth remain as cold, as frozen, as dry as it had been then? Why on earth was life instilled on this in this world in the first place, if it had to be destroyed so senselessly? So he is questioning the logic of creation, because life on earth had been nurtured so painstakingly. If you take the case of human beings, we know that we had developed from a single celled organism, and then we developed into something bigger, and then we lived on trees in the beginning, and then due to certain changes we came down after the dinosaurs disappeared from the face of the earth. Our ancestors, they came down from the trees, they learned to stand on two legs, and they became apes, and then we developed further and we became human beings, and we prided on ourselves as being the crown of creation. Was it for this? Was it to be killed at the hands of our fellow human beings for very flimsy reasons? So the frustration, the anger that he directs, it is towards the leaders, the warmongers who sacrifice the lives of millions of young people for very selfish causes. So the question of this futility, so this question, the last question, oh, what made fatuous sunbeams toil to break earth's sleep at all, is directed to all these people who spread hatred, who spread hostility, who make wars happen, who make battles a reality. So this is a question directed to all those people. And in this one poem, though it is very short, very small, it is a highly thought-provoking poem that makes every reader dwell on the idea that is presented here. And it is high time that we started taking the poetry of Wilfred Owen seriously, because even today, in spite of having witnessed the First World War and the Second World War and minor battles all over the world, today we are bearing witness to yet another battle in another part of the world, and battles going on all over. Isn't it high time that we stopped this? That is, I think, the question that is raised in this poem, Futility. How can we, or who gives us the right to destroy something that has been so painstakingly nurtured and such a beautiful creation of God? How can we destroy this? That seems to be the question that is asked here. And I think that is a question that we should all ask ourselves. In this poem, Wilfred Owen seems to tell us how the calamitous actions of human beings have even upset the elemental structure of the universe. And even the vital force of the universe, the sun's energy, is unable to nurture life. What more unfortunate can happen to the world? So this is a highly thought-provoking poem, and it carries a seriousness that belies its brevity, and it is a poem that all readers should take to heart.